गिरिवर यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन हे वीरवन चार हे मुक्तिरावन चार Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Jaya Radha, Kunjabira, Gopijana Vallabha, Girivara, Yashodanandana, Vrajajana Ranjan, Yashodanandana, Vrajajana Ranjan, Emutiravana Chari, Emutiravana Chari, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhu, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. नाम संकीर्तन की जय, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। Hare Krishna, devotees, welcome to daily Bhagavatam class, ISKCON Seshadripuram. Share the screen for today's verse. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, is this sloka is visible? My screen share is visible. Hare Krishna. Oh, am I audible? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, yes.
Thank you. Is the screen is visible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrutyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Ashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. So today's Bhagavatam verses, third canto, 28th chapter, 41 verse. Bhutendriya antah karana, Bhutendriya antah karana, Pradana jiva samyikta, Pradana jiva samyikta, Atmatata pratak darshata, Atmatata pratak drishta, Bhagavan Brahma Samjitaha, Bhagavan Brahma Samjitaha. Word to word translation. Bhuta, the five elements. Indriya, the senses. Anta Karanat, from the mind. Pradhanat, from the Pradhana. Jiva Sabdita, from the Jiva soul. Atma, the Paramatma. Tata, so. Tatak, different. Drishta, the seed. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Brahma Sabditaha, called Brahman. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Parabrahma, is the seed. He is different from the Jiva soul or individual living entity, who is combined with the senses, the five elements and consciousness. Purport. A clear conception of the complete whole is given herewith. The living entity is different from the material elements, and the supreme living entity, the personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the material elements, is also different from the individual living entity. This philosophy is propounded by the Lord Chaitanya as Achinta Veda Abheda Tattva. Everything is simultaneously one with and different from everything else. The cosmic manifestation created by the Supreme Lord by his material energy is also simultaneously different and non-different from him. The material energy is non-different from the Supreme Lord, but at the same time, because that energy is acting in a different way, it is different from him. Similarly, The individual living entity is one with and different from the Supreme Lord. This simultaneously one and different philosophy is the perfect conclusion of the Bhagavata school, as confirmed here by Kapila Deva. Living entities are compared to the sparks of a fire. As stated in the previous verse, fire, flame, smoke, and firewood are combined together. Here, the living entity, the material elements, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are combined together. The exact position of the living entities is just like that of the sparks of a fire. They are part and parcel. The material energy is compared to the smoke. The fire is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. In the Vishnu Purana, it is said that whatever we can see or experience, either in the material or spiritual world, is an expansion of the different energies of the Supreme Lord. As fire distributes its light and heat from one place, the Supreme Personality of Godhead distributes its different energies all over his creation. The four principles of the Vaishnava philosophic doctrine are Suddha Advaita, purified oneness; Dvaita Advaita, simultaneous oneness and differences; Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita. All four principles of Vaishnava philosophy are based on the thesis of Srimad Bhagavatam explained in these two verses. Here the purport of this sloka 41 is Ajnanatimirandasya Dhananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Kadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Bhutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Kana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschasya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna devotees, thanks for joining morning Bhagavatam class ISKCON Seshadripuram. As we are discussing third canto, 28th chapter and 41st verse. So the third canto name is status quo. The status quo means, say for example, government passed some amendments and how that amendments are happening right now in the country. So like that they'll come and check. So same way the status quo also, the primary and secondary level of the creations happen, and whether those things are happening or not, it is like verifying or checking or just recalling those things. So it is like that. And this third canto beautifully we could understand in 4 divisions. It is like meeting of Uddhava and Vidura, Sarga and Visarga, pastimes of Lord Varaha. These all are out of our scope. The 4th division we could understand like this: appearance and teachings of Lord Kapila. So this is about the cantos brief understanding, and we will move to the chapter understanding. And today's chapter is about Kapila's instruction on the execution of devotional service. I'm repeating, Kapila's instructions on the execution of devotional service. And so little background about previous chapter and the next chapter is, the previous chapter deals about understanding material nature, and the next chapter deals about explanation of devotional service by Kapila, Lord Kapila. So, and our focus is only about Kapila's instruction on the execution of devotional service. And what is the origin, or where this particular chapters inquiry started between Mother Devati and Lord Kapila is, it is started from chapter 25 and the verse number 29. She asked, explain the process of jnana, yoga, how many limbs do they have, like that. And the Lord started explaining to her from the chapter 26 to the chapter 28. The chapter 26 and the 28 deals about all this subject matter, especially this subject 27 and 28 deals about method of liberation. Who could aspire for liberation is yogis. So we will discuss more about the liberation and the yogi, and what is the surrounded matters about that. The difference between jiva and prakriti, limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, description of Lord's form for performing dharana, etc. So the main core of today's topic is or the flow of the today's topic or this particular chapter section like this. Initially, the section 1 deals this subject I am talking. Sorry, this chapter I am talking. This chapter deals about Kapila describes, Lord Kapila describes the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. So there are 8, yoga process. And then the second division or the second section, description of the form of the Lord for performing dharana. So it's dharana is one among the 8 Ashtanga Yoga process. And the section 3 deals about dhyana, the meditation on the individual limbs of the Lord. So we have seen, how to meditate on the Lord, how to take darshan of the Lord, starting from the leg and each and every limb, how that a devotee or a yogi should meditate on, which purely deals about Ashtanga Yoga here. And the next division, which covers especially what we are going to discuss, this subject matter division is, but the unfortunate situation of a yogi is that he gives up that form to attain liberation. So this yogi at the time of leaving the body or for the sake of liberation, going up to the Brahma Jyoti and leaves this form of the Lord. So that one should be clear before getting into the meaning of this verse or before getting into the verse. And the slight flow to become so familiar with this verse is the 4 points I would like to share is conduct of the unfortunate yogi. In spite of drowning in the ecstasy of the form of the Lord, the unfortunate yogi tries to remove that form from his mind. So, for the sake of liberation, at the time of leaving the body, the form of the Lord, the yogi leaves, and he started meditating on the Brahma Jyoti. That is the problem of yogi in other yoga process other than Bhakti Yoga. So, the true yogi, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the true yogi who always meditates on me, always serves me, always thinking of me, such a person is the true yogi. And such this kind of yogis in Ashtanga Yoga, the state of such Jivan Mukta. So he acts if he is totally unaware of this body, yes, just as a drunkard person is totally unaware of his body. The body remains as long as his is, prarabdha karma remains. So these all are we have discussed in the verse, the verse number 37. A person desiring liberation should cultivate this thought process. What is that thought process? One should understand we are different from the Lord and we are different from the body. That is what today's subject matter. The super soul is different from the pradhana, the jiva and body and senses. So the pradhana is also could be understood as maya, the material nature. So the pradhana and this pradhana is the whole material nature as a entity, and this maya, the maya sometimes could be addressed as a pradhana also. And one should understand what is meant by jiva and body and senses, that is prakriti, and what is the difference between the Lord and us. So in the previous verse there is a example given. The previous verse example is about fire and the purport also we discussed about. So once again, I'd like to uh, read that purport for better understanding what we discussed in the previous verse. The living entities are compared to the sparks of a fire. So we, the living entities, are the spark of the fire, as stated in the previous verse. So these are the items one should remember: fire, flame, smoke, and firewood. But generally, these four are combined together. I'm repeating: fire, flame, smoke, firewood are combined together. So, for better understanding of the previous sloka. Here, the living entity, the material elements, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are combined together. Living entity, material elements, and Supreme Personality of Godhead are combined together. The exact position of the living entities is just like that of the sparks of a fire. They are part and parcel. The material energy is compared to smoke. The fire is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So these two items one should remember. Now we will think about what is this material energy and what is this, spiritual energy, or what is this material world, or what is this spiritual world. Let us get into the detail from Bhagavad Gita 8.17 to few slokas which nicely describes. And today's subject matter is these two only. One is about the difference between the material world or the material energy and the spiritual world and the spiritual energy. Then we will discuss more about the four principles of Vaishnava philosophy. This is what the complete discussion for another 20 minutes or 30 minutes. So first we will understand the detail to get into these four sampradayas. As I mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita 8.17, there we could understand very nicely what is the difference between this material world and what is the spiritual world. Then we can understand this verse properly. So as mentioned in the 8.17, let us discuss particular detail. So the theme is comparing the material and spiritual world and glories of supreme abode. It is relevant to today's verse. What is this material energy? What is the spiritual energy or the world? Here, the first Krishna compares material world with spiritual nature from the verse number 17 to the verse number 22 in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8. So the theme is, in comparison to spiritual world, material world is a place of repeated creation and destruction. So the material world is miserable and temporary. And should we have a clear thought process on this? Material world is miserable and temporary because here everyone must suffer. Why? In verse number 16, it was mentioned the sufferings are birth, death, old age, and disease. These are the problems in the material world. Then constant creation and annihilation, that is mentioned here. Bhuta Bhutva Pralayate. So this material world is constantly created and annihilated. Further detail for understanding this from verse number uh, chapter 8, 17 and 19, 17 to 19. It is mentioned that duration of material universe is limited. Though it may be a Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, so it is keep on created and keep on annihilated. So this is the property of the material world or material nature or a Prakriti one should understand. The analogy for better understanding is Brahma's lifespan as compared to eternity is like lightning flash. The causal ocean has innumerable Brahmas like bubbles in Atlantic. These are the analogies for better understanding of this creation and annihilation, which is destined in the material energy or this material world. Even Brahmaloka is compared to material planets, not free from birth, death, disease, old age, and death. Who goes to Brahmaloka? The elevated sannyasis goes to Brahmaloka. For better understanding of this yogi and sannyasis, for that this may be useful. Who goes to Brahmaloka? Elevated sannyasis goes to Brahmaloka. What is the fate of Brahma? Because of service to the Lord, gets liberation. So what is the benefit of Brahma gets or because of service to the Lord gets liberated. This is the fate of Brahma. Bhutva Bhutva Pralayate. Repeated creation and destruction because of being captivated by illusionary energy explains as follows. So in a repeated creation and destruction, being captivated by illusionary energy. Annihilation at Brahma's night. Annihilation happened during Brahma's night. Again, manifestation arrival during the day of Brahma. End of Brahma's life, all living entities remain unmanifest for millions of years. End of Brahma's life, all living entities remains unmanifest for millions of years, again to be manifest in another millennium. So that is a detailed understanding of the material world or the nature of the material energy. And three types of annihilation are there. What are those three types of annihilation a living entity experience with respect to Brahma's life? There are three types of annihilation. Number one, at death of the living entity, every time he takes a body. Death, if somebody dies, Prabhupada says, now the one who dies, they will take birth. Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jananam. At the death of the living entity, every time he takes a body. And number two, end of Brahma's day. End of Brahma's day, another type of annihilation happened. And at the end of Brahma's life itself, right? So at the end of Brahma's life, another annihilation. So these are the three annihilation for better understanding of the material world. And then what is recommended here by understanding this material world is intelligent person take to Krishna consciousness. Use human life fully in devotional service, chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is recommended by understanding this material nature or the material world. Aspiring for no more rebirth, transfer in this life to the spiritual planet of Krishna and become eternally blissful. So now we understood what is the material nature, what is the take-home message from the material nature. We understood from verse number 16 to verse number 19. So this is for little understanding about the material world. Now let us understand about the spiritual world from the verse number 8.20 to 8.21. It describes the spiritual world, the abode of the Lord. So here there are 9 subject matter one should understand from this, spiritual world. So it's better to think if somebody tries to explain one particular place, they will tell the landmark. Suppose how to reach once in Sri Sampradaya, Ramanujacharya Sampradaya, they were going to Tirupati. When they were going to Tirupati, they missed the path. So during that time, they were asking how to reach, Tirumala, Tirupati, like that. They were asking some stranger who is walking on the, that area, that, forest or that village, like that. Then that person shown the path, to them by saying, you go like this, and then, there is a landmark like 7 hills. So in that particular place, you take this particular, route, like that. He was directing. So this is analogy. Then uh, uh, Sripad Ramanujacharya glorified that particular person. Though he may be a stranger, he had shown us the path, to reach the Godhead. So that is the mood of a pure devotee. So likewise, how to understand the spiritual world here, Prabhupada is giving, more elaborated way to us to understand how to reach or how to understand this spiritual world. The first, entity to understand the spiritual world is eternal. Why it is called eternal? Because here there is no uh, birth and death like material world. So it is called eternal. Even Lord also eternal. So Lord does not have like though the Lord take incarnation here in this uh, planet or any planet, and the Lord is eternal because Lord could choose, but we could not choose. And then infallible. The second entity is infallible about the spiritual world. The spiritual world is infallible because Krishna's superior energy is opposite to material energy in quality. It is totally so. It is this material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world we know, and then full of unlimited bliss. Third entity is full of unlimited bliss, as opposed to the material world, because this material world is ashashvatam dukaliyam. But this spiritual world is full of unlimited bliss, as opposed to the material world, which is full of miseries. Why the full of miseries? Birth, death, old age, disease, and ashashvatam and dukaliyam. And the fourth entity about the spiritual world is fulfills all desires. So in spiritual world, everything is fulfilled. But here in the material world, chewing the chewed, right? The thing which gives us pleasure in the material world, the same thing will give the pain also. So attachment, my children, my wife, my property, and I am the proprietor, all these things, Then the fifth entity is all attractive. The spiritual world is all attractive, but material world, it is the perverted reflection. It looks like attractive, but which is not. It is only an illusion, Maya. But we are so stuck with this Maya, and every day we are getting, beaten by the Maya everywhere. Then finally we realize, oh, what is our constitutional position is. So it is better to take up in this life only. It is recommended. And then unmanifest to mundane eyes. Whatever the realization one could have in this material world, but it is not reachable for the mundane eyes, the mundane people. Because for that, here there is an explanation given by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita again, Bahunam Janmanam. So such a person, it is not that easy to find in this world. So Bahuna means after many births, out of many people or thousands of people, one will attain the perfection or will attain my dham, like that. And the seventh entity is transcendental. Why it is transcendental? Difference from material world repeatedly manifest and unmanifest. But here there is no such a thing. Lord's abode never changes like material world. So it is always composed of Chit Sakti, like that. So this is transcendental. This is the seventh entity or the quality of the spiritual world. And then eighth one is supreme destination. Anadir Adir Govindam Sarva Karana Karanam. Beyond you, nothing else is there. In Brahma Samhita, we understood that Lord is the supreme destination and a place of no return. Very important point. It is so connected to today's words. A place of no return. But the unfortunate yogis or the not highly elevated yogis, they will come back and they will suffer again and again. Though even like how the Brahma Loka, even Brahma Jyoti, whichever the level one elevates, again he has to come back. The one who has not realized, uh, Bhagavan realization. As we know, there are three realization. One is Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, and Bhagavan realization. Which is the ultimate? Bhagavan realization is the ultimate. So here I would like to stop the difference between or the difference among material between the material world and spiritual world. So here this is from, as I mentioned, Bhagavad Gita. Now let us look into little detail about the last paragraph of the purport. Here it is mentioned very neatly. I would like to repeat that purport, then we will get into the detail. The four principles of the Vaishnava philosophic doctrine are Suddha Advaita. Please remember these four: Suddha Advaita, Dvaita Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, Dvaita. All four principles of Vaishnava philosophy are based on the thesis of Srimad Bhagavatam, explained in these two verses. So, little detail to that. Body means what? The gross body is made up of gross elements of matter, and the subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and ego, and contaminated consciousness. So, this consciousness also important. So, this until we are in this material perception, our consciousness is identified as a contaminated consciousness. The liberated soul can understand that he and his body are not the same. So, as we discussed, the mundane people could not understand. So, here it is recommended there are four sampradayas. So, when we understand these four sampradayas, what are those four sampradayas? Brahma sampradaya, Lakshmi sampradaya, Shiva sampradaya, Kumara sampradaya. To understand this, the contradictory so-called sampradaya is Mayavada school. So we know the Mayavada school or the Smarta sampradaya. The main acharya, the prominent acharya of this Mayavada school is Sankaracharya. The commentaries on Vedanta, here it is mentioned Saririka Bhashya. Saririka Bhashya is the commentaries on Vedanta. What is the Tattva? Advaita or Kevala Advaita. And in English, it is mentioned that monism. Monism means it is mentioned that Advaita. Monism means Advaita. Now let us come to four sampradayas which is recommended. One is Brahma Sampradaya, that is our Sampradaya, or Brahma Madhva, or another also call it as Madhva Sampradaya. The prominent acharyas are Madhvacharya, Lord Chaitanya. And then the commentaries on Vedanta is Purna Prajna Bhashya. In Madhva Sampradaya, it is mentioned that Purna Prajna Bhashya. The Tattva is mentioned by Madhvacharya, Suddha Dvaita Vada, purified monism in English. In Lord Chaitanya, in our Sampradaya, Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, inconceivable oneness and difference. We will discuss in detail. And then Lakshmi Sampradaya or Ramanujacharya, Ramanuja Sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So these all are Lakshmi Sampradaya addressed in different ways. Ramanuja Sampradaya, Sri Sampradaya, Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, etc. And then Acharya, prominent Acharya we know, Sripad Ramanujacharya. And the commentaries of Vedanta is mentioned is Sri Bhashya. And the Tattva is Vishishta Advaita, that is specific monism. As we mentioned, monism is Advaita. And then Shiva Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, Vallabha Sampradaya. The Acharyas are Vishnu Swami, Vallabhacharya. And the commentaries on Vedanta is mentioned here, Sarvajna Bhashya. Sarvajna Bhashya, yes. And the Tattva is Suddha Advaita Vada. That is purified monism. And then four Kumaras, Kumara Sampradaya from Sanaka, Sanaka, four Kumaras, that Sanaka Kumara. We will discuss in detail later. And then another name is Nimbarka Sampradaya or Nimbaditya Sampradaya or Sanakadi Sampradaya. Who is the prominent Acharya? Nimbarka. And the commentary of Vedanta is mentioned Parijata Swarupa Bhashya. What is the Tattva in Kumara Sampradaya? Monism and dualism. That is Dvaita Advaita Vada. Dvaita Advaita Vada. Monism and dualism. That is in four Kumaras. And then Mayavada school, as mentioned earlier, it is Advaita or monism. Now we will discuss this one by one. First, we will discuss about Mayavada school. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita about the first, Mayavada school. It is mentioned here. The Mayavadi says 2 points. In each Sampradaya, we will discuss about one point. And about the Mayavada, we will discuss 2 points here. In Mayavada school, the Mayavadi say that the world created by Maya is false. This is the understanding by this Mayavadis. So that is the reason Prabhupada always condemned, this Mayavadis very strongly. And Western devotees initially, they thought that, Mayavadi is some particular person. Let us go and, meet that person or, let us beat them like that. So here it is mentioned that the Mayavadis say that the world created by Maya is false and that actually there is no living entity but only one spiritual effulgence. Their understanding is there is no entity. It is like, the foolish Vada, right? Like this analogy is better to understand, this Mayavada school and, our Sampradayas. It is mentioned like this. It is mentioned very clearly with this analogy. It is mentioned with this analogy. There is a sunlight which comes from the sun rays coming from the sun, and then the sunlight which is coming through the sun rays. The Mayavadi philosophy says they understand the light energy pervaded everywhere. They accept it, but they will not accept the sun god. That is a problem. They further say God is imaginary, that people think of God only because of ignorance, and that when the supreme absolute truth is befooled by the external energy Maya, he becomes Jiva or living entity. They say we are also same, the Supreme Personality of Godhead also same. That is refuted. Upon hearing all these nonsensical ideas from the non-devotees, the devotee is greatly afflicted as if his heart and soul were broken. By hearing this, the pure devotee's heart is, feeling like broken. And this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the second point about the Shankaracharya school is Shankaracharya's belief is personal. Actually, he is he is a covered personalist. He become impersonalist just to drive away Buddhism. Those days there was a Buddhism. All of India was Buddhist voidism. Buddhist voidism. Void means what? Nothing. Sunya. So, although a personalist, he had to keep pace with voidism by expounding impersonalism. There is very little difference between impersonalism and voidism. But because he had to bring Buddhist back to the Vedic cultural form, Shankaracharya wants to bring back all this voidist to the impersonalism. So he attempted with back to the Vedic cultural form. He adopted impersonalism. This is the understanding or the root for better understanding of this particular division of faith. From the Padma Purana, it is learned that Shankaracharya is Lord Shiva himself. And who can be greater devotee than Lord Shiva? Lord Shiva is considered to be the foremost Vaishnava. So this is for better understanding of this monism or Advaita. Now we will move to Lakshmi Sampradaya. Sorry, Brahma Sampradaya. We'll move to Brahma Sampradaya. Quickly, we will discuss one point according to Prabhupada's, lecture in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10, 10th canto, 21 to 74 from Mayapur about Brahma Sampradaya. Brahma is Mahajana, or there are 12 Mahajana stated in the Shastras. The Brahma is one of them. Swayambhu. Brahma's name is Swayambhu. The other day, we were discussing Swayambhu or Atmabhu. This Atmabhu, because he is born out of the abdomen of the father, not of the mother. Father is the seed giving, living. The father is the seed giving, life giving agent. So this life was not transferred to anyone else to take the body. The life giver, father gave him the body. Therefore, Brahma is called Swayambhu. We know from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Brahma is actually divided into two, and then biologically, as a Jiva, he brought out all other Jivas. So this is from Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 21 to 74 verse in Mayapur. So this is about our Sampradaya. This is Brahma Sampradaya. So our philosophy says Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. This our Sampradaya, we can address it as a Brahma Sampradaya or Brahma Madhva Gaudiya. Gaudiya means the region of Bengal or in India. We all know. And the Tattva is Lord Chaitanya, Achintya Veda, Veda Tattva, inconceivable oneness and difference. That means qualitatively same and quantitatively different. So one should understand this Tattva of this Sampradaya. And we will move to Lakshmi Sampradaya or Ramanuja Sampradaya. See, here it is mentioned Lakshmi Sampradaya or the Ramanuja Sampradaya. They are called Sri Sampradaya. They worship Lakshmi Narayana. Everyone worship the Lord and his potency, spiritual potency, just like we worship Radha Krishna. Similarly, the Ramanuja Sampradaya, they worship Lakshmi Narayana or Sita Rama. So we should follow the Sampradaya. So this Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, we could follow like that. Srila Prabhupada is recommending. This is from Srila Prabhupada lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 25 to 76 verse, Mayapur. So this is about Lakshmi Sampradaya. So one more point I would like to bring out here under Lakshmi Sampradaya. So there is a two division of faith, but according to Shastra, only one faith. But still, the devotees' mood we could understand here in Sri Sampradaya. They call it as Vadagalai and Tengalai. So which based on the north and south Kalai. So here it is mentioned those who put this red one. The philosophy is we give prominent position to Lord Vishnu, then the position to Lakshmi Devi. But here, as we experience in our Sampradaya, when we go to Vrindavan, many devotees in ecstasy, they say Radhe, 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 Radhe. But the position one should understand in Sri Sampradaya also, in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, this Vadagalai Sampradaya, they follow the prominent position to the Vishnu first or Krishna first, then Lakshmi Devi. But here, this Tengalai, that another division gives more emphasis putting together, like the worshipping both together only. The position also giving together only like that. So this is going on. And then the another Sampradaya is four Kumaras and Sri Nimbarka Sampradaya. Brahmaji wanted to create the whole cosmic situation as it was in the previous millennium. And because in the last devastation, knowledge of the absolute truth was altogether erased from the universe, he desired that the same knowledge again be renovated. Otherwise, there would be no meaning in the creation. Because transcendental knowledge is a prime necessity, the ever conditioned souls are giving a chance for liberation in every millennium of creation. This mission of Brahmaji was fulfilled by the grace of the Lord when the four sanas, who are those four sanas? Sanaka, Sanant Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanatana appeared as if as his four sons. These four sanas were incarnation of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. So as they are the representation of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. And as they explain transcendental knowledge so explicitly that all the sages could at once assimilate this knowledge without the least difficulty. So it's very important point. By following the footsteps of the four Kumaras, one can at once see the Supreme Personality of Godhead within oneself. Wonderful. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, 7th chapter and 5th verse. Sorry, previously I mentioned, the verse numbers, 25 to 76 like that, and 12 to 70 like that. 12th chapter, 70th verse, and 25th chapter, 76. Okay. And now, Lord Shiva, another Sampradaya. Lord Shiva is described here as Charachara Guru, the spiritual master of all animate and inanimate objects. He is sometimes known as Bhutanatha, which means the worshipable deity of the dull-headed. Bhuta is also sometimes taken to indicate the ghost. Lord Shiva takes charge of reforming persons who are ghosts and demons, not to speak of others who are godly. Therefore, he is spiritual master of everyone, both the dull and demonic and the highly learned Vaishnavas. It is also stated Vaishnavana Yata Sambhu. Sambhu. Lord Shiva is the greatest of all Vaishnavas. On one hand, he is the worshipable object of dull demons, and on the other, he is the best of all Vaishnavas or devotees. And he has a Sampradaya called Rudra Sampradaya. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 2nd chapter, and verse number 2. So now we have come to an end of today's discussion. As Prabhupada mentioned in the translation, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Parabrahma. So Parabrahma means who is eternal. He is the seer. So he is the seed-giving father, we have discussed. So that is the reason he is being identified or Lord being addressed as a Param Brahma. He is different from Jiva soul or individual living entity. So as we discussed in the Mayavada school, they say, no, I am also same, the Lord also same. And see, even in Buddhism, as we discussed, voidism. In Buddhism, when the body dies, when the body dies, soul also dies. So for better understanding, we have to keep track of all our Sampradayas, four Sampradaya and Mayavada school, and a better understanding of Mayavada school from the Buddhism. Buddhism is voidism, and this Mayavada school is monism, right? So we and the Lord is same, or everything is same like that. Combined with but here the position of the living entity combined with the senses, the 5 elements and consciousness. Until we are in material consciousness, this is contaminated consciousness. Once we come to the parampara, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned, Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Our Tattva is qualitatively same and quantitatively different. We are like a drop and Lord is a ocean. So that is understanding. And Here the best analogy is given from the previous verse. As I mentioned, as stated in the previous verse, fire, flame, smoke, and firewood combined together. Though it is combined together, it is different. Smoke is different from the fire is different from the flame, etc. And here, as fire distributes its light and heat from one place, that means Supreme Personality of Godhead distributes its different energies all over his creation. So different energies we have seen. What is the property of material energy we have discussed? Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jananam. It is being, annihilated and created again and again. And the spiritual world we have discussed, there are 9 points very elaborately, for better understanding. And the last paragraph is the four principles of Vaishnava philosophy is Shuddha Advaita or purified ones, Dvaita Advaita, simultaneous oneness and difference, and Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita. So all these 4 being identified, Sampradaya names Brahma Sampradaya, that is what we follows and Madhva Sampradaya follows. And then Lakshmi Sampradaya or Ramanujacharya Sampradaya follows, and Shiva Sampradaya or Rudra Sampradaya, that is what from Vishnu Swami and Vallabhacharya, and Kumara Sampradaya, that is from Nimbarka, from the Acharya, prominent Acharya Nimbarka, and the Tattva is from Brahma Sampradaya, that is Lord Chaitanya, Achinta Veda Tattva, and in Lakshmi Sampradaya, Visishta Advaita, and from Rudra Sampradaya, this is purified monism, Suddha Advaita Vada, and this Kumara Sampradaya, monism and dualism, that is Dvaita Advaita Vada. So these are the take-home messages from today's verse. Once again, thanks to all the devotees, those who are participating, and my humble obeisances to the temple authorities for giving me this opportunity. And if there are any mistakes, you are most welcome to suggest. And if there are any additives, you are most welcome to add it now. Or if there are any doubts, you are welcome. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, devotees.
Hare Krishna, Prabhupada Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, well, thanks, Prabhuji, for the excellent class.
Thanks.
Prabhuji, as you are saying that from the fire, the smoke, and the sparks, everything.
Okay.
But as well, and about the Supreme Lord, the living entity, and the material nature. So, in one way, as it is, one way it's same and are different, isn't it, Prabhuji? Like we living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. So, being part of
one minute, Prabhu. 1 minute. Yes, Prabhu. Please continue. There was some disturbance. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
You can continue.
Yes, Prabhu. Like as we are a part and parcel of Krishna, so we are as we are part and parcel of Krishna, we are qualitatively one with Krishna, isn't it, Prabhu? But there is difference because we have come to this material nature. So, is my understanding right, Prabhuji? Like because we are come to this material world, and since we are identifying with this material world, so we are finding ourselves different from Krishna, qualitatively.
Yes, obviously. So that is a very nice question for asking this. That is the main core of understanding among different philosophies what we have shared. So otherwise, what will happen? I'll tell you. See why today I have told about Mayavada school also. It is out of our scope for subject matter. Otherwise, what will happen is we may end up with this Mayavada school, like how Shankaracharya or Sri Shankara Bhashya preaches that, right? So it is mentioned that this Lord also same and I am also same. I am also God. if not this qualitatively and quantitatively not different, what will happen? I'm just relating to the another mentioning here, Mayavada school. So in the Mayavada school, they accept the conditioned souls, thinking that only this light itself, the light source, the light energy itself, sun, as equivalent to sun. But still the sun is different. That example you could remember what I was thinking. So if until I am in this state, then it is that particular position only, this material world position only. The one who understand there is a kirana behind that, there is a rays behind this light, and there is a sun behind, or there is a sun personification behind this sun rays, then that is a perfect philosophy. Then one could progress happily, then one could release that. Otherwise, the unsatisfied yogis will again take birth again and again. Even the person who goes up to Brahma Jyoti, connected to today's verse, even the person who goes up to Brahma Jyoti, when the person leaves the body, he may forget the personal form of the Lord. Then he attains the higher planetary system. Again, he comes back. That is a problem with even unsatisfied or other yogis. The qualified yogi, the one who follows this, what is that, Bhakti Yoga. The one who follows the Bhakti Yoga, they will attain my abode, Krishna says. We had a detailed discussion about this material world, how it looks, and how the spiritual world, how it looks. If still I am in the beginning phase only, I am the spark of the Lord, but I am the spark of the Lord, or I am the, what I can say, until I'm not understanding, the difference between the smoke and the fire and heat and the light, all these things, then I may end up with this Mayavada school. So Prabhupada very clearly puts, please follow these four sampradayas. That is our sampradaya, especially Lord Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu sampradaya, Achinta Beda Abeda Tattva, inconceivable oneness and difference. Yes, this is a way to understand. We have the quality of the Lord, but we are not as equivalent to the Lord. That is understanding. Yes, we have the quality. This Atma is the spark of that particular fire. Yes, we have the quality, but we could not. But as a whole, if you take this material world and all other creations of this Lord, we can understand that is also the creation, or that is also part of the Lord. But even though there is a difference, how the material world is different from spiritual world, we understood clearly. So likewise, even this fire and the spark, though the spark has the quality, the material world is also a creation of the Lord, but it works in a different, purpose or different direction. But even though it is works in a different direction, that is also a creation of the Lord. So that is a proper understanding about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's inconceivable oneness and difference. So Lord is the ocean, right? We cannot limit within this material world only. We cannot limit even within the spiritual world only. Lord pervaded everywhere. Lord pervaded everywhere in innumerable universe. We know first canto and second canto, if we go through, then Lord is innumerable. We cannot bound Lord with some particular bound. That is the reason Chaitanya Mahaprabhu here it is here he is mentioning inconceivable oneness and difference. So we have the quality, but we could not become, our Lord could not be bounded within the boundary. Yes, this is what the Lord is calling.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji.
Your question, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. We are very clear, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Right. Is there any other sharings, additives? Most welcome. Hare Krishna. Otherwise, we'll end the session here. Krantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.